Hey, what is up everybody? This is Jason with devslopes.com, and in this video, we're gonna build our very own first quick website using SASS. All right, so let's go ahead and get to it. So I've got a basic starter template for you to use. All right, so go ahead and download that and open it up. And you'll see in here in our HTML body that we've got some basic layout that we're gonna be using here. Now, what I want you to do, I'm not going to show you the finished product yet, but go ahead and let's launch this project in the browser. All right, so open up your Finder, and then in the folder here, go ahead and right-click on the index file and just open it up in your browser. All right, so you can see that we've got something really basic and really boring here. So why don't we just dive in right now and style this with some sauce. All right, so go ahead and open up your SASS file. Now, we've got our SASS file created here, right? So the next thing we really need to do is set up a watcher for this. So to do that, go ahead and open up your terminal or your command line. And this project I saved on the desktop, and I'm already in the folder. So I'm gonna type in SASS, SASS -- watch, and then this one we named our SASS file main, so main SASS, and then we want to compile this into main.css. All right, cool. So now we've got a watcher set up for us. Cool deal. And then in the style sheet, I've already linked our main CSS file for us. All right, so in here, what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of comment 3 different sections that we're going to be using. So go ahead and create one that says variables. Let's give some space, and we're going to call this one mixins. Give it some space, and then right down here, this is where we're just going to throw our styles in. All right, cool. So variables. What is a variable? A variable, like you may or may not have learned with JavaScript, is simply something that can store a value. Think of it like a bucket, all right? You throw something in the bucket and it holds it, it stores it. So you can do the same thing in SASS by creating variables. Now, the variables that we're going to be creating here are going to be variables that simply store a color value, all right? So to create a variable, you're going to type in a $, and then the name of your variable. And in our example, we're going to call it brand main. And then what I like to do after I create these primary variables is I like to tab out like 3 spaces, 1, 2, 3. And then we're going to add the value to it. And this one, it's going to be 6600 CC. All right, and remember, we don't need to end things with semicolons. All right, let's create a second color here, variable name, and we'll call this a sub, 1, 2, 3, and then let me steal a color here, CC66FF. All right, and then let's create one called brand dark, and this one's just going to be 333, and then we'll do one that's lighter, brand light. And we're going to do this one E6 F2FF. All right, and go ahead and throw in that pound sign. All right, cool. So we have created some variables. And if we go ahead and open up our CSS file, we look at it and it's empty. And it's like, well, wait a minute, what's going on? Don't we have our watcher set up? And we do, and we don't have any warnings. So why aren't our variables being compiled into CSS? Well, that's because a variable it's not a style property, all right? A variable is just simply something that stores a value. So all we've done here is created some variables to store some colors. We haven't built any styles down here. All right, so we can go ahead and do that. All right, so let's come down into our styles, and the first thing we want to do is let's just simply change the style of the body. And you'll notice that we just grab the element selector here, hit enter, it tabs us in. Remember, we're not creating curly braces or using semicolons. And then we're going to set this to a background color, and let's do this one the light. So we can actually go ahead and use our variable name here. We did the first thing, and we come into our CSS. We can see that our SASS is compiled successfully. Let's go ahead. Didn't I open up that folder? I did. I'm going to go ahead and throw this on my other desktop here. All right, so go ahead and refresh this, and you can see that this brand light color changes it to a very, very soft light blue color. All right, and so let's go ahead over to Adam, and we're going to add some more styles here. All right, so let's move down here, and you'll notice when I hit enter after this, see how it's still indented? Just keep an eye on this when you're creating a new style for another element selector or something like that, okay? Make sure you hit the backspace key to get the cursor to realign up so that it knows that you're going to be working with a new class element or an ID or something. All right, so in our index HTML file, we've got a section that holds that paragraph text with all that lorem ipsum. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab the section, and let's add some styles to it. So right now it's currently expanding the entire width of the viewport. For now, let's just give it a fixed width, and I'm going to go ahead and set this to 780 pixels. And I do want this text to be in the center, so I'm going to go ahead and on this section kind of container thing, I'm going to set a margin to auto to center that content. And then let's go ahead and add some padding around the text, and we're going to do 20 pixels. And then right at the top here, just because I like to organize this in a hierarchy of things, let's go ahead and add that background color. And we're going to do the color brand sub, okay? And then let's go ahead and add a color to the font. And let's do the brand dark. All right, go ahead and save that. And then I always like to pop open my terminal. I see everything's compiled successfully. And go ahead and refresh that and check that out. Come back here and let's do something a little bit fun. I'm going to add a border radius to this, and we'll do a border radius of like, I don't know, 20%. All right, just round off the corners for fun, right? Always looks better to style things. And that's way too much, and that's actually really ugly. Let's go ahead and change that. I'm going to change this actually to 7 pixels. What I was doing is I was taking the corners and I was shaving off like 20% of them, which was way too much. And what I really wanted to do is take off just a little corner. So we'll just throw in that 7 pixel and then come over here and we'll refresh that, and that's a lot better. It's not so ugly. All right, cool. Let's do something with this what's up over here. All right, and our what's up, I gave it a class of thumb1. So let's go ahead and grab that and work with that. All right, so back to our SASS. Press enter, hit delete, bring the cursor back, and we're going to bring in that thumb1, and we're going to create some styles for it. Now, to style this, we're going to do something a little bit different, okay? We're going to play around with a mixin. All right, so in Sassy CSS, a mixin would be something like, I think it's using like the @ sign, and then you type like mixin, and then some name, and then throw in some parameters and things like that. But this is SASS, and it's a lot easier. Check this out. All you have to do is equal, and then we're going to do the name of it. And what we want to do with this mixin is I want to use this mixin to shape things, like perhaps put border radius around things, change some text colors and background colors, things like that. So I'm just simply going to call this shaping, and then we're just going to give it 2 parentheses. All right, now a mixin is really cool. So inside of here, just like a JavaScript function, you can throw in some arguments, some parameters. And what we're going to do is we can name these variables anything we want, just like what we did with the variables up here. So we want to add a height and a width to this shaping tool that we want to build. So I'm going to go ahead and do a height, and then I'll create a width variable. And we want to be able to have a background color to this, and then also a color for our fonts. And then I'm going to squeeze in here, and I'm going to just call this rad for radius, and this is going to add the round corners to whatever we want this to be. And then simply inside here, we're going to hit enter and then make sure we're tabbed in. And now we can go ahead and we can assign these parameters to a property. And let me show you what that looks like. So go ahead and we're just going to say the height is equal to the height. And we're going to say that the width is equal to the width. Holy Moses, why does it do this jazz? All right. And then we're working with the radius. So border radius isn't compatible across all browsers. And so we want to grab a couple of those, the syntax to be more compatible with these browsers. For an example, like the WebKit, we want to grab that and then we're going to type in border radius. So I'm going to copy this. And of course, I'm going to say this is equal to rad. Actually, you know what? Now let's copy this. Go ahead and hit enter. I'm going to copy it again. And we'll change this to Mozilla. And paste this again. We'll make this to the Microsoft. And then we'll make this last one equal to just the standard border radius. And then we, of course, need a background color, which is going to be equal to our background, not a bug. We want it to be equal to our background. And then the color, which we want to be equal to our color. Simple enough. All right, and then one thing that I like to do, this is a little jumbled to me, kind of hard to read. I'm gonna push these. Oh man, I hate it when it does this. I have like some auto completion tool that is just like ruining my life. Okay, good. I like get scared when I hit tab if this thing's gonna pop up. All right, I love it. See, there it is. There it is. It's just popping up and messing my life up. Okay, we good. All right, so that was kind of lengthy, but we went through and we set this this mixin up. Now let me show you what we can do with this this mixin now. So I told you that we wanted to work with that what's up text, and what I want to do with it is I want to add a box to it, like a colored box, and add some border radiuses and colors and backgrounds and things like that. So inside of this thumb class, hit enter. Now all we have to do is hit the plus sign and then the name of our mixin, and then we get to go in here and we get to drop in our parameters. So we equaled a mixin, and then we threw in some variables that we can assign a value later. And then in here, now we get to do that. So the first variable here is the height. So we're going to give this a height of 120 pixels. And then we're going to give it a width of 120 pixels. And then we need to give it a radius of like 10%. All right. And then what's the last one? Let's see. We've got a background color. And we'll go ahead and check this out. We're going to use brand dark. So you can drop in the variables that we've already created as a variable inside of this shaping mixin that we've created. And then the last one here, it's a color. So let's go ahead and do a color, and let's grab another one of our color variables, and we'll use brand light. All right, so let's see what this has done. So check this out. So we've got this class called thumb1, and in one line of code, check out our CSS, it has completely generated and built out this entire class for us. All right, so you can see that SASS, once you get your like variables and your mixin set up, all of a sudden you can start using these all over the place and start building and styling things very, very quickly. All right, so let's see exactly what this did. So come over to your browser. I'm going to refresh that, and what we've done is we've put this dark box around our text, and we've rounded out the corners of it. Let's play around with this text inside of it. So let's see, let's do this right below the body, and we're going to grab the header one, and I'm just going to add a text align of center, and it was kind of like snugged up to the top of our box, and what I want to do is I'm going to push it down. So I'm just going to add some padding top of like, I don't know, shoot in the dark, 20 pixels. Let's see how that looks. Cool, that's fine, that works great, that's good for me. All right, so now what I want to do is I want to take this box and I want to move it all the way over to right here. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. So we've got this thumb1 class for like thumbnail one. All right, and we've added this mix into it. And the cool thing is we can add these mixins to it, and then, nested right underneath that, we can go add our regular additional styling properties if we want to. So to move this around, we're going to push it around with some margin, and we're going to do, the margin top is going to be 0, and then we're going to do negative 435 pixels to get this thing to shift over, and I need it to come down a little bit, so we're going to give it a margin top of 90 pixels. And I actually got this mixed up. I want this to be negative 90 and that to be positive 435. So let's check this out. Jam! Cool. So we've moved it. We got to do a few more things here. The little thumbnail is behind this section, and I want it to be in front of it. So let's go ahead and play with that section here. So to get this section to get behind, is that what we need to do? We need to push it behind? That's right. To push it behind our thumbnail box there is we're going to give this a position of relative, and then we can change the layering, how things stack with the z-index, and I'm going to put this a -2 so that we can make sure that it's underneath, behind that first front element there. So we've got everything saved. Go ahead and refresh that, and shabam. We brought it to the front. I dig it. All right, this is coming along nicely. I want to add some pizzazz over here, so let's go work with that thumb2 class. All right, so let's go right underneath our thumb1, and remember to backspace, and we're going to grab the thumb2. All right, and just to remember, just a reminder, I'm not making up these classes. Remember, in the index that I've provided, I created those classes for us. So we've got the thumb1, and now we're working with a thumb2, and all it is, it's a simple div class that we're going to add some shape to. All right, so let's jump back over here. And what we're going to do is we're going to use the same, here, let me create some space for us. And what we're going to do is use the same exact mixin that we already created. So we're going to use the plus sign. Go ahead and write shaping. And then the height that we want to add, I'm going to make this a little smaller, do 100 pixels by 100 pixels. All right, and then I want to make this a circle instead of just like a box with rounded circles or rounded corners. And so to do that, we're going to give a border radius of 50%. So we're taking this element and we want to shave off 50% of it. That way it's going to give us a nice circle. And then we get to pick a background color. And what I'm going to do here is we're going to call this the brand sub. That's that purple color that we assigned to the section. And we don't have a font in here. All right, and so the next parameter in this, where's my mixin? The next parameter in this is a color for text, but we don't have text in this div tag, but you can't leave it empty. Your terminal, let me do this, I'm just going to go ahead and save. Your terminal is going to scream at you, and it's going to say, hey, on line 45, there's an argument missing for color. All right, so it wants something there, and I'll go ahead and give it something. And it can't style a color to anything. You could technically put it anything you want, but in this case, I'm just going to make it the same purple background as the section that we want here. All right, so now that we've given this div element some shape, let me show you what we've done here. Refresh that. We've got the sweet purple circle over here to our left, but we got to get this guy snugged up over here. All right, so again, we're going to push this thing around with some margin. So we're going to do margin, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do negative 50 pixels from the top to kind of suck this thing up. And then it's actually 1300 or 1310 pixels here to pull it all the way over to push it from the left. And yes, this may or may not line up appropriately on your screen. It just depends on how big it is. I'm using a 32-inch 4K display, so it works on mine. And you might have to play around with these numbers for it to work on yours. So we've got our margin set. That's fantastic. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna create another mixin for these buttons, okay? And I hope you're not getting overwhelmed with all this stuff, okay? These variables, these mixins, everything that we're doing here, we're gonna be diving deeper into these things later on in the lessons. All right, so go ahead and let's create another mixin. And to do that, remember, we use the equal sign. And we're gonna call this btn main, all right? And we're gonna drop in some parameters here. The first thing that we want to do is add some padding. All right, so I'm going to type in padding, and we're going to want to add a border radius. So I'm going to hit rad, and of course we're going to want a background color and then a text color. So let's go ahead, and the first things first, padding is going to be equal to padding. All right, and then we have our border radius is going to be equal to our, actually it was rad, wasn't it? It's going to be equal to rad. And then we've got a background color, which is going to be equal to background. That bug, man. It's like a bug that it auto corrects it to bug. It needs to just be background. And then, or I need to rename my variable. And then we're going to add the color and set that to color. And again, I'm going to go ahead and space this stuff out here. Make it look a little bit prettier. Boom. Okay, awesome. I like it. A little bit easier to work with. Now, so we're going to be working with a button here, and we're going to be targeting an HTML button, the element selector of button, which has some default HTML5 styles to it, and we want to make sure we get rid of that. So we're going to go to border width, and we're going to set it to 0, and then we're going to grab the border style. Let's see, border style, and we're going to say none. Okay, and we always want to make sure that this has a cursor of pointer, and then I want to make sure these buttons are centered. And so for this example, because I want the buttons to be in the middle of the screen, I'm going to give it a display of block and give it a margin of auto. These two last styles here, they're probably not something you want to add to like a default button standard, because you're going to want to position buttons with like grids and rows in your HTML, not with CSS. So that's cool. So everything's looking good there. Let's see how that looks. Do we have any errors? Nope, everything's looking good. Go ahead and refresh that. Oh, we created the mixin, right? We haven't assigned it to anything. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. I think I got those classes called btn 1 and then btn 2. So what we're gonna do is we're now gonna grab our, let me create some space here so you can see here. So I need to make sure that I am tabbed in here, and we're going to grab the button class that we just made, the btn main, and let's drop in some parameters. So the first one was padding. We're going to add, let's do 15 to the top and bottom, okay, and 20 to the left and right. And you're probably thinking like, what? Like, what are you doing? And well, if you think about it, when we use the regular padding property, you can assign, either 1 to 4 values to it, depending on what sides you want to add the padding to. And in this case, it's really cool because that one variable, we can put the 2 values into it because it still works like a padding property. All right, so we've got 15 from the top and bottom, 20 to the left and right. What was the other things that we had? I already forgot. The radius, background, and text color. All right, and then the radius, why don't we do something simple on this button? We'll just do 7 pixels. And then we need a background color. And we're going to do this brand main. Let's just give it a color of white. All right, there we go. It is purple. Perfect. And see, we've got our cool little pointer here. All right, I'm going to show you something else that we can actually do with this. And this is fun. It's new. Please don't get overwhelmed and write some review like, he just went crazy. I'm not going crazy. I'm showing you and teaching you new cool things. All right, so let's come down in our SASS file here. All right, right here in our btn main. And what we're going to do is, we know in CSS that we can add a hover to something, right? Inside of our mixin, we can nest this hover, and we just use the and sign, colon, we'll type in hover. So we're saying, hey, with this mixin, we also want to use the same mixin and want it to hover. And this is what we're going to do. We're simply going to change the background color. And what we want to do to this is we want to lighten the background color like this. And we're going to take our brand color main, because that's the color of our button here, and we want it to lighten by 20%. Oh, that was not a percent sign. Isn't that cool? So we just created a mixin for a button. We added all these style rules to it, and then on the hover, we're able to use this new feature where we can take our same color and just lighten it 20%. Now you can do a lighten or a darken to these colors, and what's so amazing about this is, rather than trying to hunt and find a hex code or something that's a similar grade of the color you're already using, you can simply take that hex code and transform it on a percentage base. All right, so we've done a 20% lighten on our button. And is that what we did? That's the background color. Yeah, the main. Perfect. So come over here. Let's go ahead and refresh this. Check that out. Isn't that neat that we were able to add that lighten 20% to it? So very cool. All right, let's work with our last button here. This is going to be fast. We're simply going to grab that second button, and we're going to do btn2 this time. And we're going to go ahead and add our mixin here. And check this out. So we had like a square button before, but why not go crazy with this? So we're going to do 30 pixels of padding on this, and we're going to go nuts and say that we want the border radius to be 50%. So basically we're turning our button into a circle now. And we want the background color of this to be brand dark. And yeah, we still want the text to be white here. All right. And then we're going to add a couple more things here. I want to change the font size of this to 2. Actually, yeah, because we have text in the button. I was like, wait, do we have text in there or not? But we do. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add my own hover onto this. So that way, just like we know in CSS, you've got cascading style sheets. Well, we're overriding this style rule here. We're just reassigning it directly instead of using it from the mixin. So we're going to do the and hover, and we're going to do something a little bit different here. This time we want to take the background color, and I want to darken this here, and we're going to take our color, the brand main, and I want to darken it 10%. Perfect. All right, that's good. And if we squeeze on over here, refresh, I broke something. What the heck, man? Well, good thing we have our trusty terminal here. It says that line 64 does not accept block content. What did I do? Oh my word, we do have it missing. Ah, I didn't put a comma there. So now we've got our 4 proper things going on here, and it's still, I think my spacing's off. My spacing is off. No, it's not. It's not off. It is off. Check that out. So pull this back, keep the background color there, hold the door, and we compiled successfully. Go ahead and refresh that. And there we have it. We got a button that hovers here. We've got this one here, and everything looks fantastic. So that's cool. You have just built your first website in SASS. We did a quick overview of variables, some mixins, and how to set up your styles. So good job. Let's move on.